Hey everyone, welcome to another Webflow community live stream. I'm your host Nelson. Thank you for joining me today. Now, before we get started, I want to say hello to everyone who's in the live chat right now. How y'all doing? Where are you all tuning in from? Now, while I wait for your responses, let's change up the scenery a bit, yeah? All right, be right back. Ah, much better. So today is a special stream. Well, not only because I'm here live from the HQ studio, but also today is Global Accessibility Awareness Day, or GAAD. Now, we as a community, we spend a ton of time during these streams focused on how to make building websites more accessible. But let's be honest, how many of us in the community could do better at building with accessibility in mind? Myself included. So that is why today's stream isn't just about us. It's about everyone and, how to build with everyone in mind, including search engines. So today, we're focused on web accessibility and inclusion and how we can use a combination of Webflow and other tools to make our websites as accessible as possible. With that said, I'm super excited about the 4 agenda items we have today. We're going to go with accessibility for the web. Then we're going to talk about how Webflow can be an ally. Then testing for accessibility. And then we'll open up the floor to you, the community, to ask any questions to our guests. And speaking of guests, to help us explore accessibility for the web, let's welcome Senior Software Engineer Ruben Nic and COO and co-founder of Matechs, Mirela Prifti. Hi, Ruben. Hi, Mirela.
Hello, Nelson.
Hi,
Thank you
Hi.
so
great to
much.
be here.
Thank you so much for inviting me today. And hello, everyone who's joining us in the live chat.
Yes.
Hi, Nelson. Hi, Mirela. Hey, Webflow community.
Welcome, welcome. So, yeah, we have a lot to get through today, and I'm so glad you're both here. So, I'm going to start with you, Ruben. You're a senior software engineer here at Webflow, but more specifically, you're a front end and digital accessibility specialist. Can you tell us a little bit more about yourself and, what's your role as an accessibility engineer? What does that mean?
Yeah, so I joined Webflow about 2.5 years ago. I was one of the founding members on the accessibility team. And what that means is that we help other teams understand accessibility issues and constraints and how to navigate and solve those issues. And then I'm also a software engineer, which means, I go down into the bit mines and mine all of that code and sing sad songs about IPOs and RSOs. Uh,
Right. Okay, we'll go. I know we won't go deeper into that, but yeah, thank you so much for being here. And Mirela, again, welcome to the stream. Can you tell us more about yourself and the community, or sorry, the company you co-founded, Matechs?
Thanks, Nelson. My name is Mirela Prifti, and I'm a digital designer based in London, where I've co-founded Matechs. We're a digital consultancy company providing design, software development, and training solutions for developers and development teams. Personally, I take care of UX projects, web design, and obviously Webflow development. And as we also build our internal projects and internal tools, this is where accessibility became more and more important for us, and we decided to invest time and resources researching it, which has improved a lot our services and enriched our knowledge base. And this is how I became an accessibility advocate. And I just want to say that it's wonderful to see, to also see Webflow's commitment to such an important part of web design and development, which is web accessibility.
It is. It is. And lastly, I know that you're also a member of the Floxies community, and just want to give a shout out to that community. But for those who don't know what that is, can you give a short intro about the community and why you're a member of the group?
Definitely. Flux is a community for women in design, no code, and obviously in Webflow. I joined Fluxys ever since its inception over a year ago to network and help other people with their design, and also Webflow projects. We have multiple channels about Webflow, which are typically pretty active and busy. So kudos to Claudia that
Yes.
created such a productive and useful space for us.
Awesome, awesome. And I see a lot of people from the Flaxies community already in the live chat. So hello, hello.
Hello.
Yeah, so before we move on to our first topic, I just want to remind everyone that if you have questions about accessibility, go ahead and start asking them in the live chat. And our moderators, Lacey and Matthew, will pass them over to me, and then I'll pass them to either Ruben or Mirela. All right, so let's talk about accessibility for the web. Now, Mirela, I'm going to pass this one to you. Can you explain what accessibility means in terms of web design and development?
Yeah, so there are many ways that we can answer to this question, but basically, when we design and develop accessible websites or digital products, we're allowing everyone to navigate and interact with our websites. And with everyone, we're including also people with permanent or temporary disabilities and also people with situational impairments. And it is important to keep in mind that many types of disabilities come with aging. So when we are creating accessible websites, we're also creating for our future selves. And especially in the recent years, with the rise of the digital economy, more and more people want to participate and join and benefit from it. So providing accessible digital means to individuals and entire communities allow them to improve their well-being.
Ah, yeah. So you said two things that really caught my attention. Is situational disability, and then also we're building for our future selves because we age. Like everyone ages, and so we're kind of building for ourselves in the
We
future.
can't escape aging, right? So
Yeah, unless someone invents something, but like, yeah, you can't
who
escape
knows?
time. Yes. So, yeah. Okay. So,
That's a, yeah. Just wanted to provide more perspective. So from disabilities, it's not just about people who feel sick or ill, but it can happen to any of us, and it can be temporary. So we never know when we might need to access digital websites or products.
yeah, that's true. That's true. Ruben, can you go deeper into this? Like, can you give us some examples of why accessibility is so important?
Yeah, absolutely. And exactly as Mirela is talking about, I think to really understand the importance of digital accessibility, we kind of have to re-understand, we have to relearn our understanding of what disability actually is. I think oftentimes when people think of disability, they think of, people who are blind or people who are in a wheelchair. But the reality is that disability is actually a really large category. In fact, the World Health Organization defines disability as an interaction between the individual, their body, and their environment.
Mm.
And I brought this graphic. Nelson, can you pull this up for me? And so this
Okay.
graphic.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I think we. Oh, there we go. We
Yep.
lost you for a second.
Oh, sorry there.
It's all
Uh,
good. So you were saying about this slide?
yeah. And so what this graphic really kind of shows is that folks can be situationally disabled, right? Whether that's, being a new parent and carrying their child, right? And not being able to type with two fingers, being in a cast, or, actually having, a missing limb. Uh, The other
Mhm.
thing that I think is really good here is that it kind of showcases how many different ways that it can, that somebody can be disabled, that it's oftentimes this dynamic and fluid state. And when we start to take this definition of disability, it's actually 15% of the global population. Now, I think it's also super important to note that when we talk about digital accessibility, we should uh, center the people on that left-hand side, right? The people who have the permanent disabilities, because without these these fixes, without providing these accessibility features to them, they actually can't use the products and the services that we develop. And so, while yes, we all benefit from it, I, if we don't do this, we are actually leaving out a large group of people.
Yeah, yeah. Now I understand more of what Mirela was saying with that slide, the situational part, and being a new parent myself, like I remember when my daughter was a newborn and I had to hold her, making sure that she doesn't wake up, and I'm trying to ask my wife to help me with something or get me something while I'm in her room, and I'm like, it's really hard to type with one thumb, and I'm holding my child. And so, super grateful for speech to text, so I can text message my wife. And so it's like, yeah, that situationally, I was disabled. I only
Yeah.
had one finger and one arm. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's incredibly common. In fact, one that I think happens all the time is screen-induced motion sickness.
Mm.
This affects, anywhere from like 40 to 60% of the population. Do you know the technical term for that, Nelson?
No, no. What is
It's
that?
cyber sickness, which which is a good name, but you should have saved that one for something else. You know what I mean? Don't give out your good name first.
Cyber sickness. That sounds like it's coming out of like the Matrix or something. Like that should have been used for the Matrix. Was
Yeah,
that in the
just save
script?
it. Yeah, don't go so big at first. Wait, wait to give your good names.
Okay. All right. What would you have called it?
Ah, wow.
Just
Screen-induced motion sickness?
well, okay. Cool. We need more acronyms in the world. Yes. Yeah, that totally makes sense. And I've seen many websites where people like to have fun with their Webflow interactions, animate so many things just for the sake of animation. And while that is fun, it's best to, uh, keep it calm because you don't want to cause that the cyber sickness. Yeah. Yeah. All right. So, I've another question, and I want to toss this up to both of you. So we're hearing a lot of how we can all how this affects basically everyone. Because again, we all can't stop aging, and we're all there's permanent, temporary, and situational disabilities. But what is one thing we as a no code community could start to do better and start making our websites more accessible?
Well, for one thing, events like this one are very, very useful to at least create awareness among
Mhm.
designers, in this case, Webflow designers and developers. And what I would recommend is to start from one topic at a time when it comes to accessibility, because when you're just starting out, it might feel a bit overwhelming.
Yeah.
And so just start with one topic at a time. Let's say with contrast issues. So focus on that and deep dive on that specific aspect of accessibility. Personally, I try to share as much as I can on my social channels about accessibility. I try to be I target both designers and obviously Webflow developers. So whenever I share something about web accessibility in general, I always try to show how to implement those best practices also in Webflow. So yeah, if we all do a little bit of our part, I think um, it would be very beneficial to the whole community. And we need to have many more events like this, for example.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. We should have more. Yeah. We should have more events like this. I agree. And yeah, this is a first step. And like I guess yeah, just 1% better every day, right? You don't have to do it all completely. Don't have to, it's like you don't want information overload. Um, but yeah, just take it one step at a time. Thank you. Now, uh Ruben, I want to talk about our next section on how Webflow can help with accessibility. So, can you tell us what features Webflow currently has to help with accessibility?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have right here my Webflow designer open,
Okay.
and I want to showcase some of the features that the accessibility team has built into the designer to make it really easy to catch and fix and learn about these accessibility issues. And the first one I want to talk about is I want to talk about the audit panel.
Hmm.
So I'm not sure how many of you folks have ever seen this kind of, red square pop up sometimes. And what that is that's the audit panel. And if you open it, it tells you, hey, we've discovered some accessibility issues, and you can open them up and they tell you a little bit. You can click learn more and they'll take you to a Webflow University article to give you more details. And specifically, let's go through three of them really quickly, right? Let's go through the skipped heading level.
Mhm.
And so we see that we have this heading level. It gives us three different options for how to fix it. You can click show me and it'll even like move so if let's say you're on the style tab, right? If you click show me, it'll move you over and it'll highlight it really nice for you. And we can switch it to H2, which then says the issue is fixed. Now, why do we actually raise this up? The reason why is because folks who are blind or low vision oftentimes use what's called a screen reader to navigate your web page. And their primary way of jumping through content is they actually go through headings. They, look at the first heading and then, they look at the second heading and then the third heading. And if you don't have your heading levels in order, let's say you go from heading level 1 to heading level 4, it can be very confusing because those folks can be, well, wait a minute, did I miss something? Where's 2 and 3?
Yeah, it's like you're skipping chapters or something in a book.
Exactly. Yeah. The
Yeah.
next one that, has gotten a lot of focus, and I'm super happy about this, is alt text, right? Adding alt text to images. And what alt text is it describes an image. This not only helps folks who are blind and low vision, but also folks who have poor and unreliable internet connections. So if an image isn't loading, it'll actually show the alt text. And so let's write a really quick alt text over here.
Okay.
And as a software engineer, I made sure to buy the loudest keyboard available, so you're going to hear that. So I would say this is a photograph of Ruben smiling while wearing a shirt that says, I make websites accessible. And I'm going to misspell that. It's a hard word to spell.
A11Y. Yes.
So cool. We've solved that issue. And the last one I want to talk about is non-descriptive link content. This one can be tricky because, what does that actually mean? Once again, we also have the Webflow University article that will explain it, I think, a lot better than I could. But what that is that, let's say you have a link, but it doesn't really have an accessible name. Oftentimes how this shows up is icon buttons, right? This is an icon button. As we look at it visually, we can guess that, hey, this is probably takes you to the settings. But because it has no accessible name, somebody who's using a screen reader doesn't know. It's just going to say button. It's not going to have any name. And so this one, we actually just want to say settings. And once again, the Webflow University will talk a lot more about alt text and how alt text is very context dependent. Because, right, this is a much shorter alt text than our previous one. So I really suggest that you go and look at that content. And then when we go back to the audit panel, right, look at this. We've passed all of these, right? We should feel really good about ourselves. No issues found. And we're going to continue to develop this, and more audits will be coming out in the future. Now, the next one I want to show is color contrast. So over here, I have this gray text on gray background, which is so hot right now. But
It's a design
it can be
choice.
kind of, yeah, And my website is also gray text on a gray background. So I'm not trying to throw too much shade. But it can be hard to read. And so how do we check that? Well, if we go to the Style tab and we select the text and we go under Typography and select the color, we see that there's this contrast ratio over here, and it tells us that we're failing. We're at 2.73. Now what you want is at least a 4.5 contrast ratio to your background. And so are we just going to drag this around and be like, oh, well, I don't know where I'm going? We help you out here too. If you press this nice little icon over here, the eyeball, we draw these little lines and then we see, oh, hey, cool. We're now hitting AAA standards and we're now hitting AA standards. And so, I still want it to be gray. And so I'm still gray, but now I'm also in the AAA, and that's a lot easier to see.
Yeah.
The other one that I really want to showcase here is Vision Preview. So not everybody has, full spectrum color vision. Not everybody sees with 20/20 vision. And that can be kind of hard to envision how that looks, right? Because that's not the reality that me and you live through.
Yeah.
So we have a nice little tool. So if you go into Canvas settings, we have Vision Preview. And you can select a few different vision previews. And we've also designed this in mind of how often these appear in the population. So red-green color blindness is the most common, and then there's blue-yellow color blindness, and then there is full spectrum. Focus impairment actually happens a lot, but we just kind of put it down at the bottom. And then green weak is more common than green blind, and to help you look through all of these. And the reason why that's important is oftentimes we use color alone to show information, and I want to showcase how that can actually make content inaccessible. So here, we have a form. We see we're using color on the left-hand side to say that the first name and the last name are required.
Okay.
And then on the right-hand side, we actually just say required. If we start looking at that with green blind, we see it's actually kind of hard to see. It kind of disappears a little bit. And then we also have this graph over here, and we see that as soon as we start looking at it from different, red blind, red weak, it kind of becomes really hard to see.
Yeah.
And one way that I think is a really good way, instead of going through all of these and checking, we have this monochromatic mode, which does happen, but it's very rare in humans, but it gives you a really nice indicator of of a way to check all of these different color blindnesses.
Yeah, I've seen in many forums on the internet, someone would say required, and they would put a red asterisk next to the form label text, and I'm like, now that I'm thinking about those, I'm like, oh yeah, that is really tough to see.
Yeah, it absolutely can be tough to see.
Just write required then, rather than coloring it or putting an asterisk.
Yeah. And so, the general rule of thumb is never color alone. Always color and shape or color and texture. Yeah. And the other example I want to showcase here is, now this is a video game in the late 90s. It was a collection of mini games. And this game was specifically designed for family members to fight each other.
So is that Mario Party?
I don't know the name, but I know what it caused.
Wait a minute, what did it cause?
Sibling fights. And so in this specific game, this character on the right-hand side would hold up a flag color, and you had to run to the mushroom of that flag color, and the rest of them, sank down into the sea, and you could push each other and stuff like that. But what you see, there's only color alone distinguishing these. And so when they redid this game just recently, they actually made it so that each of these have a shape and a texture to them. And when we start to look at it in the monochromatic mode, we see, can you tell the difference between these two colors right here?
Yeah, you can't. But on the right side, you can see different patterns.
Exactly. And that, you do these small little changes and you benefit so many people. It's really great. the last thing I want to talk about is this really small, wispy text, right? And look, it looks good. It looks great and artistic, right? iOS 7 really tried to go with small, wispy text. But unfortunately, if you have blurry vision, which can happen for a variety of different reasons, right? Cardiacs, keratoconus, which is, your iris is sort of deformed and can't be corrected with glasses. You have permanent blurry vision, and we see this disappears. But when we look at the larger text sizes, right, you can still kind of make out what's being said, and you can zoom in. And so we also, we put that in there to help you check against, maybe some of the text size choices that you're making.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much for the demo. And yeah, even when you put it blurry, the Mario Party game, the updated version, yeah, it still is clear. Like if I'm playing and I have blurry vision, I can still play with my friends or family and
Oh, you're
have
right.
long conversations about why I won or lost. Yeah, thank you so much. And I'm looking forward to seeing even more components become accessible. But yeah, Mirela, before the stream, you were telling me ways to further test websites for accessibility. And I'm really interested on what you do with Webflow and these tips that you told me before the stream. So I really want to go deeper into that. So Mirela, can you go ahead and show us how you test for accessibility?
Thanks, Nelson. So basically, this is what my presentation will be based on, which is testing website for web accessibility, which means that once that we have cleared all the accessibility issues that the audit panel inside Webflow flags as we're building the site, just as Ruben showed us earlier, what do we do next? And how do we make sure that our site is actually accessible and that people who use keyboard or screen readers can actually navigate and interact with our site? And I will be focusing on two main aspects of web accessibility, which are content structure and links. I will use as an example the site of our company, Matechs. Okay, my screen. You can already see my screen. Yep. So the first thing that I do to test to check the content structure of any web page is by using a Chrome extension, which is called Headings Map. I call this a special purpose extension because it does just one thing and checks the heading structure of a web page. So this is a free extension that anyone can freely can download and start using right away. So as you can see, the first thing that we can see in this the left side of my screen, as soon as I click on the Chrome extension, we can see like the heading structure in the form of a tree map. And in the first line is the page title. The page title is what we see here at the top of our tab, is the same title that we see on search engines and also when we share our web page on social media or chat applications. When we are in Webflow, we can set up the page title by going to that specific page. Okay, my computer is behaving a bit slow, but that's so much that it can handle. So basically, when we go to the page settings, so in this case, we are in the home and we scroll down, we go to the title tab. This is where we add the page title of any web page within Webflow. So if we continue, after the page title, we have heading level 1, which is the H1. Then we have the second level of headings, which are nested inside the H1, and the third level of headings, which are nested inside an H2. And this is exactly the content logical flow that I wanted for this page. And if I click on any of these headings, then it will jump. The screen will jump into that specific section. So we can also make sure that the design the design also reflects the same logic of the content that we wanted for this section. And why is this important for accessibility? People that use screen readers, they might choose to listen to a list of headings, and based on what they hear, they can start listening to from a specific section of the page. So not from the beginning of the page.
Oh, so
So
this is
yeah,
what Ruben was talking about with the headings level in the audit panel, and now you're seeing it more visually with this tool.
yeah,
Yeah.
definitely,
Yeah,
definitely. So
and
we can think, yeah,
I've seen I've seen designs or websites that have two heading levels. I mean, sorry, two H1s right on top of each other, just for design purposes, because they're using headings as a way to have a larger or smaller text. Now, with this Chrome extension, it makes more sense why that design decision is a no-no, because it just seems like you have a H1 and then
yeah,
H1 and then like
yeah.
H4, and it's like, what?
Yeah, that
So
is definitely a bad practice.
yeah.
And as you mentioned, this, which is a typical classical error that we often see on websites when we do our accessibility tests. If there are any in the audience, if there are any copywriters or content designers, this type of content structure might look very familiar, and because this is how ideally the copywriter should deliver the copy to the designer.
Mm.
A well-defined content structure significantly and positively impacts design decisions, obviously accessibility, and also SEO, because as I mentioned before, the page titles and also headings can be they can be crawled by search engines. So it is definitely very important to have to use a clear and descriptive language in headings.
Yeah. So
So
yeah, you're talking about content writers. So I guess you're adding accessibility from the beginning, when even before you place a pixel on Figma or even Webflow. You got to talk to the content team and be like, okay, we need clear headings for each section of content. Yeah, that
yes,
makes sense. That makes sense.
yeah, and one more thing that I'd recommend to UX or UI designers that deliver their designs to Webflow developers or web developers,
Hmm.
I would recommend to annotate in their design file the level headings hierarchy, so the level of headings inside the file,
Yeah.
so that then the Webflow developer can directly and can implement right away the right structure of headings as they're building the site, instead of leaving it till the end, which yeah, if you don't do an accessibility audit in the end, or if you don't see the red box that Ruben showed earlier, yeah, you might that would be a bad practice,
Yeah,
and
you
you
got to
might
do it from the
forget.
beginning. Yeah. Great tip.
Definitely.
Great tip.
Okay, so the next thing I'd like to show is another Chrome extension that I use, which is called Wave. So let me close Headings Map and let me open Wave. Okay, hopefully everyone is seeing Wave. Let
There
me
it
know when
goes.
it shows up.
Yep.
Okay, perfect. So Wave stands for Web Accessibility Evaluation Tool. This is also a free extension that anyone can download and start using on the browser. It is powered by WebAIM, which stands for Web Accessibility in Mind. This is a nonprofit organization that provides leading expertise on web accessibility at an international level. So as soon as I clicked on Wave, it instantly performed an accessibility test on the current page. And we have here in the summary an overview of the features that it just tested. And we have the number of errors, contrast issues, potential issues, but it also shows things that we've done well, which is always an opportunity to feel proud.
Hmm.
And if you want to go to know more, have more information about these features, we need to go to the second tab, which is details. And here I listed, we have more details on the features that we saw in the summary. So I want to maintain the current focus on the content structure.
Okay.
So you can scroll down to the structural elements. where we have the headings level and the number of each heading type. Um, obviously, there is just one heading level 1, so there are no issues flagged here, which means that the heading structure complies to accessibility guidelines. Yeah, it is similar to the prior Chrome extension that I showed, but this one is also, it is more detailed, because if we click, for example, here in this little icon, it will go to the reference, which is the third tab, and it will provide more information and details of what that specific feature means. And in this case, this is a first level of heading, and it shows why it matters, how to fix it, if there are any issues. So this is just, it doesn't tell you how to actually fix it. It's just a general information that they
So
provide.
this is kind of like the Webflow audit panel, and when we saw Ruben use it for the headings, it did explain and it had a link to a Webflow University article, but it goes one level deeper, where it'll with a click it'll show you here's where to fix it, and it opens up whichever panel in Webflow on where you can fix it with one or maybe two clicks. So yeah, this wave is more general, where Webflow is like really in your project and helping you get through it. But it's having both is nice.
Definitely. And so this is
Mm-hmm.
in Webflow. For example, let's click on this one, on this alert here, which are potential issues. And alerts are, let's say, potential issues that may or may not require intervention. And in this case, it flags a redundant link. The redundant link refers to this get in touch link. And this get in touch link takes you to the contact page of the site. It flags it as a potential issue because if you remember from our initial design, so I have it here. I have a contact page, a contact link also in the navigation bar. So the tool flags this as a potential issue because we have two links that are next to each other, close to each other, and that take to the same destination. This could be a problem for people who use a keyboard or screen reader because it adds an extra step in their navigation experience. But in this case, this is a design decision that I've made. So for now, this is how I'm keeping it this way. So I just wanted to show you what it means and how it might affect people who use screen readers and assistive technologies in general.
Okay. And I also see there's a toggle at the top of that extension. It says styles on and off, and
yes,
it reminds me of what Ruben is talking about for the alt tags for your images, to make sure that you got to make them all descriptive enough so that, like, if they don't load or the CSS file doesn't load because of low bandwidth or something's wrong with the server, or it's just like so many people are hitting that server to pull up that website for information. Yeah, it's really good to see what your website looks like without CSS.
Okay. Do you really want to see it?
Sure.
So let's do this. Okay, so it might look scary. Okay, now there are so many all the attributes that are flagged here, so it looks a bit confusing. But there are some assistive technologies that allow you to remove the styles from web pages for many different reasons and potential visual impairments that many people have. So there's a group of people that prefer that have the necessity to consume online content by removing the styles. So this is like an additional test to make sure that the design and the content actually makes sense if we remove the styles.
Yeah, I remember like if there was like a natural disaster or a human-made disaster, um, there's going to be a lot of people who need to find information really quickly. So I can imagine a website or a web server doing its best to keep the website up, and if it and I can imagine someone like, you
Yeah,
know what, we got to turn off CSS, we got to turn off the images, we got to give
yeah,
people information that they need quickly.
yeah.
Yeah, that is a very important test.
Yeah, I want to add, I also want to add something here because you spoke about animations before with Ruben,
Oh,
and there are also assistive technologies that allow you to disable the JavaScript. So if it's just something to consider
yeah,
if your website, your web pages make sense if you remove the animation part. So yeah,
yeah.
there are so many use cases scenarios to think of. It's just we never end learning about accessibility, and
Yeah. It's
it's so
making
fascinating.
more and more sense because that again going back to that slide that Ruben brought, permanent, temporary, or situationally disabled. So this actually affects us all, you know, like
Definitely,
so yeah, these are tools that we need to start taking advantage of. And like you said at the beginning, uh we don't get overwhelmed, just take it one step at a time, right?
definitely,
Yeah.
definitely.
Well,
Yeah. So
yeah.
this was mainly about the two main extensions that I
Mhm.
use.
Mhm.
I'm trying to refresh my page. Probably my connection's a bit slow. Okay, now it's working.
Okay.
So now I want to focus on links. So I touched a little bit on Wave, the one potential issue, the adjacent links. And one way a simple way to test if our site has accessible links is by doing the keyboard test.
Mhm.
So by testing the site with the keyboard. And we can do this by just pressing the tab. So if we press the tab on our keyboard, so let me, okay, here it is. Okay, so as you can see, I'm pressing the tab and it is showing a focus ring around this link, which is the training navigation link. And if I keep pressing tab, it will go to the next available link. And if I want to go back, I can just press shift tab and it will go to the previous link.
Mhm.
And this green focus ring that you see here corresponds to the focus keyboard that we have in Webflow. So let me show it directly in Webflow. Possible? Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, so for example, I can select any link and then I go here on the right of my screen. We have here the styling panel. And if we click on this drop down here in the selector, we will see the focus keyboard. By
Mhm.
clicking it, then we can just we can style it as we please. And when you hover over the focus keyboard state, you will see that it appears a description which explains what it is and why it is important to add a focus keyboard state on any of our links, basically. So how do we interact with links or any interactive elements on our page? So this is how we navigate by using the tab and shift tab
Mhm.
to go back.
Yeah.
But how do we interact? So for example, this is a drop down. It's an interactive element, and if I want to open it, I can just press space or enter, and you will see that the drop down will open. And if I want to navigate through the links inside the drop down, I can press tab and it will go to the first link, and then I can navigate as I did before. If I want to go back and close the drop down, I can press again shift tab, and when it goes to services by pressing space or enter, it will close again. And the same logic applies to links. So if I go back to trainings with Shift Tab and I press Enter, it will take me to the trainings page specifically. So this is a very, very simple way to test our links for accessibility. But there is also a more advanced way to do that, and it is by inspecting the link. So let's try it with this link here, for example. Let's click on inspect, and let me know when you see on the right of my screen. Okay.
Okay. Yep. I see it.
It's showing up. Okay. So by clicking on inspect, right click inspect, and the developer tools will open. Let's give it the time to load everything. So it's important to stay on the Elements tab and then Styles. Hopefully the computer collaborates with me here. Okay,
there
here
it goes.
is.
There it goes.
Oh,
that's
okay. So yeah, that is. Wait, let me close this one. Okay. So let's make sure that we have our link selected. Okay, it's this one. And when we go to element styles to the right of the screen, by clicking to here, toggle element state, HOV, you will see that all the element states appear. So if I want to check for this specific link, I want to check if it has the hover or the focus keyboard state.
Yeah.
And I can just check hover, and you could see that the border color changed. So the hover state is set. For the focus keyboard, I need to select the focus visible, which corresponds to the focus keyboard in Webflow.
Okay.
So this is also all set. And if I click, for example, here, the CLS, I can also see the name of this class. So this way, I can make sure that this class has this element states set. And this is pretty fascinating when I found out actually about this tool. And I would also recommend to do this inspection in your design guideline page instead of doing it on your website, on your live website. Because typically on the design guideline page, we have listed all our interactive elements. So instead of searching for them in the whole site, especially when we have a big project, which is always a good reason to have a design guideline, right, for our website projects.
Yep, most definitely. Thank you so much for these tips. We already have a couple of questions queued up for both of you, and while I get those, all of these tips from both of you, both Ruben and Mirela, it's more and more opening up my mind for how we can make websites more accessible, because web design is such a different type of art, because it's like you have to balance function before form. You have to balance both, and more of this, it's like wow. So we got to think about both in a better way. So thank you so much. So let's get on to our questions. First one from there goes the Floxy's community. First question here for both speakers. Name one of your favorite Webflow feature which you believe truly aids accessibility when designing and developing your websites.
Can I take this one?
Go for it.
I have to say that just the introduction of the audit panel was a game changer, especially because most Webflow designers and developers were not familiar with the concept of accessibility. So that was, there are no excuses now for not having the right content structure, the right heading structure, for example, or missing alt text on your site, because the tool in itself helps you to facilitates you in building accessible sites. So I think the main game changer was just the introduction of that panel.
Yeah. Maybe call it like Webflow Wave or something. I mean, it kind of sounds like
Kind
I,
of,
th-
yeah.
I mean, for me, I feel like you're asking me to pick a favorite child, and so I'm just gonna say all of them are my favorite.
yes. All right. All right. Next question, Matthew from Matthew. What feature or tool for accessibility would you like to see added to Webflow, and how would that benefit website visitors? Ooh. So I'm gonna give this one to Mirela.
Um, Yeah, well, for now, for example, we have maybe some more support for ARIA labels, which is something that we didn't touch in this presentation.
Mm,
But yeah, that would be real helpful in providing semantics for interactive elements. This is a much more advanced feature, so I understand it might not be very easy to include it. But even yeah, providing resources, materials, that would be very good to have.
okay. Well, you're talking. Well, you have the right person on the stream, Ruben. So probably that's something you're already thinking about. Yeah.
I I can't talk about Project Roadmap, but I can tell you that you'll be happy in a few months.
Hey, I'm
Few
happy to hear. I'm happy to hear that.
Yes, same here, same here. All right, next one's from Stacy. What are some common misconceptions for accessibility design?
Yeah. Do you mind if I take this?
Yep.
Sure.
Okay, yeah. I think a really big one is that accessibility is a killjoy, right? Is that we can't have fun and creative designs and also be accessible. Um, I don't think that that's true.
Hmm.
For example, the Webflow community is really creative with their interactions, and I think they create some really amazing interactions. Uh, and yes, those can cause a lot of, cyber sickness.
Yeah.
But you can also use something called prefers reduced motion. And one of our brand designers, Corey, wrote a really great blog post that we'll share with all of you about how to support prefers reduced motion in the Webflow designer so that those interactions can, be a little bit calmed down, right?
Yeah.
Because prefers reduced motion doesn't mean no motion. It just means, a little
Yeah.
bit calmed down. And we specify which motions are more common to cause cyber sickness. And I think that's a really great way of saying, because the web is such this dynamic medium, as you
Yeah.
were talking about, Nelson, we actually have all of these different like tools and levers that we can provide to people so that they can really be creative with their designs, but also take the audience into account.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can
Well,
I add something
go
on
ahead.
this? So there's this misconception that accessibility blocks your creativity. But I actually think that the more you learn about web accessibility, the better you become as a designer and developer.
Yeah.
So yeah, it is really the wrong messaging maybe, or the wrong perception that many super creative designers probably get. But when you if you allow yourself to deep dive on it slowly, you will get a lot of benefits as a professional. So
Yeah.
yeah, don't
Yeah.
agree with that.
Yeah, put it at the beginning of your workflow, accessibility in mind from the beginning, and it just helps along the whole workflow of a website project. Thank you. All right, so
Yeah, and when you start, sorry to
oh no,
interrupt,
go
but
ahead.
when you start project with accessibility in mind, and especially when there are big projects that maybe need to be constantly updated, long-term projects, you start with accessibility in mind, but you continue designing and building with accessibility built in.
Yes.
So there's a long-term return when it's an investment. It's definitely because it takes a lot of time and resources as an individual or as a company to focus on web accessibility.
Hmm.
But in the long term, it definitely has its benefits.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay. So next one, Floxy's community again. Is this Claudia asking all the questions? She's asking, or someone from the community is asking. We would love to hear Ruben talk about this new mindset switch from fixing accessibility issues to accessibility by default.
Yeah, once again, I cannot comment on any roadmap, but I can tell you that, Webflow internally is really working hard to, you know, make sure that we don't just produce accessible websites, but having a plan and a path towards making our whole product accessible. I can't comment any more about that, but I can tell you that there is a lot of, hardworking people behind the scenes who are, really slowly making that happen. And once again, right, it's about progress. It's
Yeah.
not about perfection. We get things wrong all the time. uh, but
We learn. We're human.
exactly. We're changing how we all think about the designs that we create and the responsibilities that we have with those designs.
Yeah, this whole space, the web in general, is always evolving, and so there's always something new to learn. Yeah,
Rome wasn't built in a day, so.
yep, true, true. Uh, Next one from Emily. Any advice on how to bring up accessibility at our workplace? How can I get my team to start focusing on accessibility? Ooh, I think this is a question for Mirela.
Well, in my case, it was very easy actually, especially because I was in charge of it, so it was very easy to convince other members of the company to invest in web accessibility. But it depends on the focus of your company. So if you're building digital products, it is a must. It is a necessity.
Yes.
And as I said before, it's you need to think of the long-term benefits when you focus on web accessibility. You might start on what you're missing and the disadvantages. So like um, how they it is called like the reverse psychology method,
Oh,
so what you're missing out,
yeah.
and yeah, the disadvantages of not doing it if that works. Because
Ah,
if we just talk about it, will help people with disabilities, or even us when we are in situational impairments. But I think that doesn't, at least from what I've seen, that doesn't really work very well. So probably, yeah, if you start from the negative side of not having it, might work.
yeah, and I can imagine giving a demo to a team and saying and showing the vision preview at least inside of Webflow, saying, "Hey, if we have our forms with a red small asterisk next to the form labels that says required, which means required, this is what can happen." And you change the colors and you do the different vision previews, and I think that will start the conversation. So yeah, giving demos like that using Webflow could really help. Um, yeah. All right. Thank you. Last question again from the Floxies community. How did you discover your passion for accessibility? Was there a specific project or moment that triggered it? And I'm going to toss this over to Ruben first and then Mirela. So, Ruben, what was that moment or
Yeah,
project?
so there were two different things actually, and they sort of happened around the same time for me.
Hmm.
Uh, One of them was I developed keratoconus, which keratoconus is a degenerative eye disease where the shape of your iris is deformed and actually deforms sort of a little bit daily. So my vision actually changes a little bit each day. You get used to it, I promise. But the main thing that how it affects me is because it's a non-uniform surface, it doesn't really accept a lot of light, and so I can't see at night at all. And this trend of like having really dark restaurants,
Oh,
despise it. I can't see anything.
can't see what you're
But
eating.
so it was between that and then uh, a company that I was working for was hit by an accessibility lawsuit.
Oh.
And I was the engineer who volunteered to help fix some of those issues.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay, okay. Thank you.
That's
Thank you.
interesting.
Yeah, it was very interesting, and thank you again for leading the way to put accessibility inside of Webflow and putting it and putting it in so many different tools that we can use as a community. Mirela, so what was that specific project or moment that triggered your passion for accessibility?
So in my case, I think it started since the early days when I first started with design,
Mm.
and I reached out to a few designers for feedback, and there was one in particular that her feedback was different from anybody else, and she was focusing on contrast issues and the labels that were missing on the contact form on the site, and many other details that I had never actually heard of before. So, and she was also obviously mentioning web accessibility, providing resources, and this was many years ago, and it really got me triggered something in me. And then I started working with a few companies and doing projects and those projects were performed actually specifically advanced QA testing.
Yeah.
And that was also something that I just, I couldn't escape from web accessibility. But I have not every project has required me or has required me to also check accessibility features, but it's just something that now it's part of my work, and I just cannot deliver even if the client didn't is not familiar, is not aware of web accessibility. It is just something part of the services that we deliver. So
Yeah, it's
yeah,
very
it's
important.
like
Very
I can,
important.
yeah, definitely.
So thank you so much. That's all the time we have for questions. So thank you so much to everyone who submitted a question. Thank you for joining us, Ruben and Mirela. Before we let you both go, is there anything else you would like to say to the community?
Thank you so much, everyone, for joining, and hope you learned something from us today.
Yeah,
Yes.
I would just say, it's progress, not perfection. There's a lot to learn about this space. I've been in it for quite a few years now, and there's a lot for me to learn as well.
Yeah.
And we make mistakes, and we have great folks on the forum have called us out on that, and we've fixed those.
Hmm.
And so remember, you're entering into this giant, big, world. You might make mistakes, and everything like that, but that's okay, right?
Yeah.
You're learning something new. Folks are going to be, really excited that you're making progress and that what you're developing is actually now usable by them.
Yes, yes. Thank you so much. And if you want to learn more and follow you, Mirela, what's your Twitter handle so people can follow more tips?
It's complicated. It's Mirela Prfiti. So yeah, but you can just search for me with my full name. So it's Mirela
Okay.
Prifti.
Okay, I think one of our mods will go ahead and link it in the live chat. And for you,
Yeah,
Ruben?
thank you.
So I really wanted Ruben Sandwich as as my handle. True story. I refused to eat that sandwich until I got into college, just out of envy and spite. And then I had it, and I was like, "This is a great sandwich."
That was
But I
really
got
good.
Ruben's sandwich,
Oh,
and so that is my Twitter handle. Maybe one day. Maybe one day.
awesome, awesome. Well, thank you both so much. We're gonna let you go off into your day, but thank you so much for being here with me and the community. All right. Have a great day. All right. So if you're in the live chat or you're watching live or you're watching a recording of this, we appreciate each and every one of you. Our next stream is going to happen our usual time, Wednesday at 10 a.m. Pacific time. So thank you so much. Now, before we end the stream, let me do one more thing. Hold on. Okay, that was fun. And as always, make the web beautiful together. See ya.
Nelson, that was an excellent. Oh, Nelson? Nelson. Stacy, Nelson is not here? Okay. um, well, his computer is here. Okay, change his password. Cool. Okay, I just came in to find Nelson, but he's. Oh, are you still streaming? Okay. I apologize for the interruption, but Nelson is not here. I'll find him somewhere else. Okay. Thank you. Sorry about the interruption. Nelson! Nelson!